going to record so that we have it. And let's get started. Thank you everyone for coming promptly. Let's maybe try to make this a shorter meeting if possible. I'm not sure whether that's ever possible, but we always try our hardest. We always have interesting things to do. Let's start by the minutes that
I think I've lost something happened here. Oh dear.
Start with the minutes that Dave provided to everybody. Does anyone have any comments about those minutes? Okay. Can I motion somebody to accept those minutes, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Donna. And a second. Thank you, Ralph. And raise your hand, yellow hand to agree to it. I just did. Okay, Ralph. Yogesh, are you gone? Did we lose? Oh, there he is. Okay. And we have, okay, good. So that passes. Okay, so we've had multiple discussions about the solar panel project. I did last month, we were pretty much unanimous, except that Donna wanted some more information, and I had spoken to her offline about pretty much all the information that everyone already knows. But the whole idea of this project is to continue with our focus on reducing our carbon footprint, and to do that, one of our largest carbon sinks is using electricity, and putting to that point, using solar panels will be a great way to offset that. The pool is a major source of electricity. So are our streetlights. We have 4 different meters in the town. One of them is at the town hall, and there are others around the town. So the idea was to focus in, to recommend to the town council to send out some bids to investigate the possibility of putting solar panels on the roof of this pool, and also the north side of the tennis court. And we talked about how the DC grid provides rec units that are very they're awesome. They're over $400, and Yogesh told me from his own home that he's getting how much money are you getting a month, Yogesh, from your
this time I got $3,000 this quarter, so whatever that works out to.
Right. I mean, that's like for one person's house, and we're talking about a bigger project. So the recs, and that applies to the DC grid, which is basically Dorset Avenue and to the south. So that covers the pool. So even if the pool has partial occlusion from the trees, even if it's only half occluded, the rec units make it financially still viable. And as far as the tennis court panels are concerned, there is a possibility we could run a cable to Wisconsin Avenue, where the meter is located, and that I understand is connected to the DC grid as well. But if we can't do that, then we'll go to the town hall, which has less lucrative recs, I think in the order of less than $100 each. So anybody have any questions? We're not basically putting any panels in right now. We're just recommending that the town investigates it, sends out bids. I'll be happy to work with Matt. Matt has already shown a lot of enthusiasm for this project. We've had a number of meetings already with the park and planning, and also the permitting department. So the possibility of doing this project is real. We just need to send out some bids and see where it goes. And at that point, we'll make a determination whether it is financially viable. But the rec units make the financing very attractive. And the ROI is only a matter of a few years. It's not like something that's going to be, put us out 7 to 10 years. So with that, I'm going to stop because I'm repeating myself to everybody. If there's no questions, then I'd like to try to do the motion again that Dave did. You can grab it from the minutes, but let me open it up to any further questions.
Well, Barton, do you have any sense of the cost of installing the wire to Wisconsin Avenue? Because that would have to be part of the ROI calculation.
Yes. So I don't know exactly, but it could be anywhere from $10, $20, or $30,000 just for the cable. But
then there's the work of installing it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea is like Yogesh said, $3,000 in 1 month just for his project. To recover the $30,000 is something that would is very feasible within,
Well, it's the difference between the Maryland Recs and the DC Recs. So it's not, I mean, yes, you would recover it quickly, but it wouldn't be quite as quick as that because it's the difference you're talking about.
Correct.
I doubt that's going to cost this much, but a rule of thumb on undergrounding utilities is $1 million a mile.
Okay, so we're talking about 100 yards.
I think it's more than 100 yards.
Okay, let's say it's 200. Okay, yeah. So it's divided by 1.780. Well, whatever. Like I said, the town council the bids would be able to determine fairly quickly whether or not that's a good option. But my preliminary conversations with the subcontractor who showed us, and I showed those images of the solar panels at the tennis courts. He said that, it would cost like $100,000 if you had to run a wire all the way to the pool. So, I don't think it's going to be half of that. So that's just a guess based on my conversations with the subcontractor.
All right. All right.
Okay. Dave, do you want to motion the same thing that you did before? Do you have that in front?
Barton, can I just ask a question? Well, first of all, it's $2,700 is what I got over 3 months, not over 1 month. So just to be clear on that. But we're asking the town to put an RFP out to basically come up with a full-on plan on what to do, and we may or may not fund it. I'm just wondering, is that the right way of doing it, or is there another way of doing it in which we kind of do our own assessment, figure out what's feasible, what's not, by talking to a lot of them, and then once we know what we want, at that point put an RFP out, because we're asking for a proposal to do something and we're not quite sure what to do. And I guess you can do it that way, but I'm just wondering what would be the best way to get exactly what we want out of the vendors.
That's a good question. I would like to answer that by just letting Dave read the motion so you can understand it, because that motion is the culmination of this exact type of conversation. And maybe why don't you just read the motion out loud, just to hear it, not as a motion, but just to say it, Dave. I can't hear you. You're on the mute. Mute.
There we go. All right. The motion, I'm not introducing it yet. I'm just reading it. The Environment Committee proposes that the town put out to bid through an RFP process the potential installation of solar panels on the pool house roof and/or along the street near the town tennis courts. The committee members will support Matt Tollinger in the development and review of this RFP and bids. That's the motion. That was introduced last week, not last meeting.
Right. So the idea is, Yogesh, that Matt is interested in being a part of this process, and he actually has already been on a meeting with me with the Parks and Planning. So he has enthusiasm to be a part of it, but we still are going to share the legwork to make this happen. Whether we should do it all in-house here and then give the rest to the town council. This is, what we came to in the motion is sort of, we thought the best way to move the process forward as quickly as possible. Ralph?
The motion is, we are recommending that the town look at this. The town is going to look at it. They're going to answer all those numbers. And then they are going to decide, probably with some back and forth with us, whether they want to do it. I'm not sure we need to belabor this. I think we are recommending to the town that the town look into this.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. I think I agree with you. So with that, why don't we let Dave actually do the motion and we can take a vote.
I move that we adopt the motion that was in the minutes from the last meeting. Should I read it again, or is that sufficient?
I think since you just read it 1 minute ago, everyone knows what it is. So you're basically saying that is the motion.
That is the motion.
Okay. Do we have a second? Thank you, Ralph. Okay, so all in favor, please raise your hand or raise your yellow hand. Okay. All right. So was that a yes, Yogesh? I didn't see your, I just wanted to know what you did because I saw you put your hand up a tiny bit.
I'm in the middle because we're prescribing a way forward instead of saying we recommend looking into this. We're saying put out an RFP, which is different. So I think it's a good idea to look into it. I think there's a lot of facts that need to be found. I think there's a whole design process that needs to happen to understand what our needs are and what we really want to do. I just feel like it's, I don't know if prescribing an RFP at this point is the right way to get that information. It might be, if that's the point of the RFP, then sure.
Right.
That's just my concern, that's all.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Yeah, that is definitely the idea of the RFP is to, like we already had spoken to contractors and they're the ones that know all the number crunching. So a lot of this conversation started from that conversation, these conversations that we've had from subcontractors, and we want to continue that and make it more real. Okay, so we basically did vote and we had most everybody put up the hand. Yogesh didn't commit, but thank you.
My hand's up.
Your
My
hand's
hand's
up
up.
now. Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to two small items. One is the distribution of the leaf blower flyers. After talking to Matt about putting the flyers in the journal, he really said that that's not a good idea because not everyone really opens that journal, and it's really much better if we go door to door. So I would love for all of us to chip in and take a piece of the neighborhood and take these flyers around so that we can just have a conversation, and even just giving it to them or leaving it at the door if they're not there. It's something personal. I think that really makes a big difference. So I'm in the process of getting the flyers printed, and I would love everyone to commit to helping out, doing the door to door. So just wanted to, if anyone has any concerns about that, I know that Kumar, who is now the chair of the safety committee, who's on the call with us, he wants to help out and partner with us in some ways related to the leaf blower. So I mentioned that idea that maybe he could get some of his committee members to pitch in. So that's a preliminary idea that may or may not pan out. But thanks for being on the call today, Kumar, and congrats on your chairmanship. Okay, so And then the other thing, which is internal stuff, is that Dave is now stepping down from writing the minutes. And earlier I had asked if anyone wanted to take over his responsibilities, and no one actually jumped at it. So what I propose is that we share the responsibility. You know what I mean? Maybe have each member do 2, and then we just move on to the next. Does anyone have any comments about that? But we really need to share it. Anybody have any objection to that idea? All right, great. Well, maybe we can just do it in alphabetical order by first name, and I'll do the first 2. Okay. Okay, great. Dave asked to give a little presentation, discussion about the salting of our sidewalks during the snowy days. As we all know, salt, you spread it all over the highways, and somehow it has to get into the watershed of that nearby river or bay. And the freshwater bays don't like salt because it's not a saltwater system. So, Dave, I turn it over to you.
Can you make me co-host so I can present?
Absolutely. There you are. You want to share some slides or something?
Yeah. Are you seeing that?
Not
Hold on
yet.
a second. Not yet. Here we go. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. So basically what I'm going to be I'm raising this because there has been some recent testing being done by Little Falls Watershed Alliance of salt levels throughout the watershed. They've been doing this over the last several years after snow events. But this year they did some testing prior to the snow in order to get a baseline, and they're pretty alarming in Somerset. And that's the reason I'm raising this. So let me run this. So the issue is that over salting, it's not just sidewalks, Barton. This is also the streets is really the cause of the problem. Sidewalks is also there, but it's really the oversalting the streets is an ongoing problem. This was raised and wasn't a big issue back in about 6 or 7 years ago. And at one point, we got a hold of the numbers of how much salt had been put on, been purchased by the contractor and put on the streets. And it was multiples of the statewide guideline. We raised it, but it went nowhere with the town council at that point. But based on recent testing, Barton near doubling again. There we go. Based on recent testing, there is excessive levels of salt in the groundwater, and that's not even after a snow event. And that indicates that there is now salt from all the oversalting in Somerset has now entered the ground and is affecting groundwater that's going into the creek. So I have a proposal at the end, which is basically to request the town to follow statewide guidelines and redesign its snow removal policies. So this is the alarming graph. And what this is essentially showing is that across a number of different areas, I have a map in the next slide of all these locations. The red line, that is the line that is determined by EPA as toxic to aquatic life. Somerset, this was in mid-December, no snow event, red at 207, almost at toxic. It's essentially mostly toxic already, but it's at that point. And then at Willard Avenue Park, which is as it leaves Somerset, it's at 153. And it's higher than the rest of the watershed, and it's to me, when I saw that, I was just kind of like shocked. And I think that it's indication that the water, the groundwater is now has salt in it. And I don't think we need to continue adding more salt because this is gonna leach out of the ground for now years, based on what has been put on in the past. So now they're going to the locations. So the testing is all throughout the watershed. The watershed is in blue. This is the Somerset testing site that I'm referring to. It's right by the pool. So it's right there at the bridge where you cross over to the pool. The Willard Avenue site is right there at Massachusetts River. And then other key sites, because they are ones that are next to highways or to urban areas, would be the one that's here on Massachusetts Avenue and the one up here near the Bethesda pool on the Willard stream. So keeping those in mind, go back to the previous slide. This is Little Falls below Massachusetts Avenue. It's less than half of what is inside of, is in Somerset. And over at Willard Avenue branch, then I'm not surprised that coming off of Bethesda, you would get all the ground stormwater coming off, and all the salt from all the streets would be reasonably high, but it's still not as high as the town of Somerset. And town of Somerset, yes, we have Wisconsin contributes, but it's also all the stormwater coming off of Dorset and Warwick that are and Fallstone that are entering into the stream at that point. So that's the basic issue, is that it's indication that Somerset is probably oversalted in the past. And salt, what are the issues? It harms aquatic animals, especially at the levels we're looking at. It pollutes the soil and water, damages buildings, corrodes vehicles, pavements, and pipes. Actually, some of the articles I've been reading is suggesting that one of the contributors to the lead in the water in Flint was caused by oversalting. And the salt brings out the lead and other heavy metals out of the pipes. And then finally, as Barton mentioned, it goes into the river and it will affect drinking water. So it has attracted lots of national attention. So before I get to the proposal, I just want to note, and I have a number of slides I don't need to go to, are about Maryland has a statewide salt management plan. This is done. This is this year's salt management plan. It's pretty much the same it's been for several years. The bottom line is that what the statewide highway administration recommends is that the snow plows and the salt trucks carefully monitor and keep levels of salt to only what's necessary, and they specify only 300 to 500 pounds per linear mile. From I don't have the exact number, but my remembrance from about 7 or 8 years ago, over the course of a year, Somerset had exceeded that amount by at least 4 times. Bottom line, my proposal I'd like to motion is that the Environment Committee recommend the town do a careful study of the amount of salt being applied on Somerset streets, and based on the results of the study, align its salt dispersal levels with statewide guidelines. I don't think we can wait. I'm sorry. I think it's too late for this year and the contracting with our, for the deal with any snow that's going to happen this year. But I do think that for next year, we need to set down guidelines and instructions with the make sure that the salting on the streets is kept to guidelines that the state uses. So that's the end of my presentation, and that's my proposal.
Thank you so much. I almost called you Sarah, Dave. Thank you so much, Dave, for your words. And I just want to give you 2 pieces of information. I spoke to Matt today, who said that the contract for the snow removal crew, which is Harman, I didn't say that correctly, the tree guys, is expiring at the end of this season. So we have an opportunity to get a new contractor. And the other thing that Matt told me is that that Martin's Additions, where he worked before, they used like what was called a brine, which is like a combination of different ingredients that can reduce the salt impact by like 30%. So he just wanted to relate to us that, it would be great for our committee to do some research to find alternative contractors that would have more friendly use of, eco-friendly material. But I'm going to open it up. I see Patty has her hand up. So let's move to Patty.
I just want to say, as a dog walker, I'm acutely aware of the salt on the streets, but Somerset is so much better than so many other places. And I remember when it was horrific, and when Sarah, made a point of it years ago, and it really was horrific back then. But there are almost no places where there's big clumps of salt anymore in Somerset. If you go just through from Drummond to Chevy Chase West, it's just covered with big chunks of salt, and sometimes big piles of salt. I've never seen so much salt. I think it's fine what you're proposing, and it's fine to look into, but there's so much more that if you look at your map, Chevy Chase West is draining into our pool. That's part of our catchment area of where that Somerset high salt level is. And
Actually, Patty, it does not. Some Chevy Chase West flows into Willard Branch.
all of it, because
Yes.
well, it's amazing how much salt there is there. So if we do this is fine, but I think that we should also talk to our neighbors, because it's out of control there.
Thank you, Patty. So you sound like you're very optimistic. I think different from the solar panels, I think in this case, Matt is really encouraging us to bring, real options to the table so that he can make good decisions. Yogesh.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. The data is incredible and tells the whole story right there. My question is, do we need a study? I mean, can we just request that we that the town, in the rebid of the contract, basically stipulate that the contractor must put what the guidelines state, or come up with bonus points for coming up with alternatives. And then that can be regularly monitored. We can put a system to monitor that. But do we even need to do a study at this point, given what you've just shown? Because it's definitely quite alarming.
Thank you, Yogesh, for that. And that's actually exactly what Matt would like. He would like a recommendation from the town, from the Environment Committee, stating exactly that you basically said it. I don't need to repeat what you just said. So I think the study is very clear there. So if there's any more comments, I would like for the committee to consider a motion to recommend what Yogesh just said. Does anyone else have any more comments about this? Okay, Yogesh, perhaps you can summarize your thoughts again in a concise motion. Give it a try, and we can help you refine it if it's off by a little bit. That's
all right, here goes. Sorry if it's clunky. I guess it's a motion to request that the town rebids the salt contract, the snow contract, whatever it's called, to have as a maximum the amount of salt that the statewide guidelines stipulate, no more than that, and simultaneously look into or solicit proposals for alternative ways of even reducing the salt further. That's terrible. Terribly praised. Terribly praised. I can write it. It's easier for me to do that.
Well, why don't you? I think what you said is sufficient, and maybe offline when I write it up, you can edit it and sharpen it up. But I think that's sufficient. So, with that motion, is there someone in the committee that would like to second that?
Before we second, I just want to just comment. I have totally support that in my proposal was this least starting point. I just want to add one other piece of information. that the Garrett Park doesn't even salt its streets. My understanding is that they use sand. So there are other alternatives. Was a whole to do about, there was the county did their streets and everybody was upset when they put salt on it. So bottom line is that there are alternatives.
Is
And I second Yogesh's motion.
Okay, great. Thank you for that extra piece of information. And with that, let's take a vote. Raise your hand if you're a real person, and if not, just raise your yellow hand. Okay. Yogesh, I didn't see you. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so we have a unanimous vote again. Thank you. All right, that's great. I'm really happy that you brought this forward, Dave. I really, really appreciate it. I've been thinking about it and I'm so happy you brought it up. Okay, I would like to move on to our new town website, which is in progress. And we have Barbara Morenis with us today, who would like to share some of her thoughts about its development and perhaps some of our input into what's going on. So I'll move it over to Barbara. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Barton, for giving me some time on the agenda. I'm Barbara Morenis. I don't know everyone here. I am the chair of the Communications Committee. And as you know, the town has a lot of committees and the town relies heavily on their work. So now that we're planning a new website, which has been something our committee and many other people, have wanted to put in place for a number of years, because what we have now is kind of clunky and not very customer friendly. We last year urged the town to move forward and go out with a proposal for a new website. And last summer, we, the members of the Communications Committee, along with Matt Trollinger, reviewed and rated a number of proposals, and we made a selection. We are working on it now with this contractor. The wheels are not turning as quickly as we would like, but with COVID and other interruptions, it's been slow, but we hope to have something up and running in the spring. So we're moving towards a real product. As we thought about this, we realized that there were lots of improvements that people would probably want to see. And about 2 months ago, the town sent out an online questionnaire to a sample of residents to get a sense from them of what their what they would like to see different on the website, what they would like to see more of, less of, what kinds of features and functionalities. And we got a list, a kind of a laundry list of things that we are working on. Such as incorporating the town handbook and directory, providing a lot of very easy access to the council meetings and minutes. And with the same to the committees, there was interest in learning more about the work of the committees. And they wanted us to be able to provide a website that could allow for easy payment of pool and tennis fees, a real-time calendar, an opportunity for people to post photos in a timely manner, and a very comprehensive how-to section. It seems that the amount of questions are infinite and people would like to have specific answers to a lot of their questions about how to get things accomplished in the town. So we've got a big laundry list of things to do, and I think that we'll be able to implement many of them. Along the way, it became apparent that one feature that would be that we wanted to implement is to allow each of the committees to have its own page. And so that's why I'm coming to you in part today, as the other members of the Communications Committee are all fanning out, and we're talking to all of the current committees in the town. And we thought that giving a committee its own page to maintain and to design would give the committees, it would increase awareness of the committee's activities, it would stimulate interest in the things that they're trying to accomplish, and encourage participation among residents in the town. So we've gotten, most people that we've spoken to so far are think that this is a good idea, but I'm coming to you tonight to essentially ask for your opinions about this, if this is something that the Environment Committee would find attractive. And then we'd also need for you to think in the near future about who on the committee, whether it be one individual or two or three, however you want to orchestrate it, would be responsible for putting information on the page, keeping it current, and working with the town to make sure that this is a useful kind of information resource. I know Barton sent out to you on his agenda initially a list of questions that we had generated for each of the committees. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but if we have a little time, Barton, I don't know how much time we can take. We had some general questions about people's impressions of the current website. I don't know if someone here has a strong opinion about some change that we would like to see. Excuse me?
Yeah, all I was going to say is first, thank you for sharing about what you're doing and your project with the town website. And everyone did see the agenda and sees all the questions. So what I'd like to do is just open up the conversation and let people just chime in about what they think about the website and what we should do. But I think in general, I personally like the idea of being in control of our own web page that we can update on our own. But let me open it up to the members. Go ahead, whoever is interested in sharing. Okay. Well, I think it's positive. Go ahead, Dave.
I had my hand up, so just I answer one of your questions. I was of the opinion that the existing website really did not support the committees well. You know, that you were not able to find minutes, you're not able to find agendas. And in addition, you were not able to, if one of our initiatives, we would want to highlight, we're not able to put that on to, let the town know about it if someone was interested. So I like the idea of having our own webpage on the town website. My only question I have is, who will have who's the web person? Who can we update it ourselves, or do we have to work through the contractor or work through Matt? That's my main question.
Yeah, I think the plan currently, although we haven't worked this out, is that whoever is identified as the committee representative would have access to the website and be able to update it on his or her own.
Right. Yeah, I think, and just so that everyone knows, I have my own website as an artist, Rubenstein Studios, and also the Mother Earth Project, which I update pretty regularly. So I'm pretty website literate. Obviously, every website's different, uses different code, but I mean, I would be willing to. This is not something that we're going to be doing that regularly. We're just going to be adding information as we make recommendations or when they pass legislation or stuff like that. So, I mean, I am comfortable being that person to be in charge of our webpage. But if someone else wants to do it, have at it. That's great. All right, Ralph gave a pretty huge man. Okay. Anybody else have any comments about that?
Well, let me just mention that there's training going to be available for the people who do volunteer from the committees to be the administrator for their own page. And also Matt is intending to hire an assistant who is going to be basically the web person, so that there'll be somebody in the town also working with you to help you get your material onto the web. So it's not that you're going to be on your own, is what it boils down to. You will have your own content, but you will have help.
Thank you,
Comforting.
Robin. Okay, I think that's pretty much all we needed to discuss. I mean, going forward, Barbara, we can be in touch, and I'll share stuff with the committee, as necessary to keep everyone informed.
Sounds good.
Sounds like you have a few months ahead of you before things are
Right.
live.
So if you're willing to be the primary contact, Barton, we'll contact you when we have training or whatever else. You might want to have a backup in case you're away and something happens.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thanks for coming today, Barbara.
Thank you. Look forward to the Environment Committee webpage.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so our last item on the agenda tonight is the Thrive discussion of high density housing, rezoning, duplexes. This is a big topic. I don't really know what we're hoping to accomplish today. I think we're just going to open the conversation and see where it goes and start to develop our thoughts as a committee about it. I don't know, I never heard from Kabir. Have you been in touch with Kabir, Robin? But
well, Kabir and I have certainly talked about it, yes.
So why don't you just go ahead and share what you want to share with us today, Robin, and we'll just sort of open up the conversation.
All right. Thrive Montgomery 2050 is the general plan for Montgomery County that is required, in fact, and replaces a plan that was developed for the county back in 1964 and modified in future years. But this is a complete replacement for that plan. And so it is a general visionary plan. And the ideas within it are then seek to be implemented through various master plans for cities, as well as through zoning text amendments. So that, in other words, Thrive is just the initial step in a process. It is not, there are other steps before things happen. But the vision in Thrive that's got people concerned is that they're to focus on certain corridors to build greater density in these corridors. And the corridors include where metro lines are, and so therefore they include Somerset. River Road is also defined as a corridor road, as well, of course, as Wisconsin and Connecticut too. So within those corridors, then they're looking for greater density housing, and the kind of housing they talk about is everything from duplexes to triplexes, quadplexes, townhouses in some places, and short, small apartment buildings in some places. So Thrive itself does not say exactly where these things would be placed, but we're certainly in the target area for it. There is another document coming now that has is related to Thrive. It's best seen as kind of child of Thrive. Is an attainable housing document, which talks more specifically about where housing with greater density would go, and set some rules up for that. Now, that document is still very much in draft form and has not yet appeared. It is the document which would probably occupy our attention the most, rather than the Thrive general plan. And that's most of what I can say just now. I'd certainly take questions on it.
Thank you, Robin. I'll open it up to anyone who wants to ask Robin questions. Okay, well, I think,
I
I guess I have a question.
go ahead, Donna.
Um, how is this process move ahead?
Okay, the plan itself, Thrive itself, is with the county council at the moment. It's gone through the planning department to the planning board, been approved by the planning board with changes. And now the county council is reviewing it. The county council will have their own changes. And that's the final stage of approval before the plan gets adopted. And there's another rigmarole for the final adoption of the plan. That's the final stage of comments. Attainable housing has got its own clearance process, and it will also go through the county council. It is not gone through any clearance yet. Once the attainable housing document is passed, then that would be a kind of master plan for development to follow in the individual city master plans that would happen subsequently. And so that would be the document that would open up Somerset potentially to have zoning for multi-family units. And that wouldn't create the zoning. The county council would have to change the zones for that to happen, but it would strongly tilt towards that.
And that was maybe my question, which was, so basically the zoning would be changed from R60 to within a mile of, the corridors. Is that my understanding? And then that would allow, a more density?
The early drafts of the attainable housing document talked about within a mile of a metro station in essence. And we don't know what the final draft says yet because the final draft is not yet written, but that's what they're talking about. And it was a mile as a crow flies too in the early draft. And between River Road and Wisconsin, we're talking about within a mile of rapid transit, and that therefore includes those two. Virtually all of Somerset is covered by that. So it would mean virtually all of Somerset would open up to multifamily housing of one kind or another. But again, the attainable housing document is still in draft form. That was what the early drafts looked like. I suspect the later drafts won't look that different, but that's what's in mind. Yeah.
So just put it into context, I think, is Connecticut another corridor?
Yeah.
So basically that means that Chevy Chase Village, town of Chevy Chase section 4, 5, all of them are going to be affected just like us.
Yeah, as well as Kensington and Garrett Park, because the corridors are all the way up. So, yeah.
Right. Robin, here's a sort of a subjective question, but how long are we looking at when this actually might happen, like be put in place? That's the first question. And the second question is, can you just give us your feeling about this whole Thrive program, just from your involvement so far? What's your feel about it?
Yeah, well, first of all, Thrive is a 30-year plan. So, it's a 30-year vision. And any change is still a function of somebody selling their home to a developer who would then have at this point a choice to put up either a single family home or a multi-family home. And that's, has then got to get clearance from both county and the town for putting that home up, whatever it is. So with all that said, what are my feelings with Thrive? I've attended a live one session and in recording another session of young people extremely eager for Thrive to pass, and young people desperate to be able to buy homes in Montgomery County and in areas where there's life. So they don't want an outer suburb where everything is a drive away. They want to be in areas where you can walk to the stores, because that's the kind of life they're looking for. And currently they cannot do that. That's So there really is a community, a young community, who are shut out of homes that are even close to the action. What if you call the action restaurants, grocery stores, those kinds of things. So something needs to change if they're going to have a better chance. And I feel that. But at the same time, I know that not all multifamily units are the same. That when you talk about semi-detached duplexes, you tend to get owner-occupied semi-detached duplexes. When you talk about townhomes, you do get owner-occupied townhomes. But most of the time when you get triplexes and quadplexes, you get rentals. You don't get homeowners. And so I find it odd that they're talking about all of these units together when they have as their first goal increasing owner occupancy, because some of these units will not increase owner occupancy at all because they'll be rentals. So yes, I see the need to do something. I don't think they've got it right yet. I know they've got it wrong. They've admitted in all the corridors that they've considered, they quote, forgot about Old Georgetown Road. So we literally forgot about Old Georgetown Road. So there's work still to be done on it. The county council is going to be doing some of that work. I hope that definitions get a distinction gets put in between rentals and owner-occupied kinds of housing, and I hope that is reflected in Somerset too. That's kind of where I am.
Thank you, Robin. I mean, I think based on what you've shared with us, what I'd like to encourage everyone to just sort of take home this conversation to themselves and think about, you know, what their thoughts are also about this. And then maybe in like a subsequent meeting, we can start to form our own opinion as a committee about what we want for our town, so that we can continue to, what's that?
Right, you're the environmental committee, so it's the environmental issues around a change in zoning is what we want to hear from you. You know, what is it that you think is going to change? Is stormwater going to be more of a problem? You know, what are the issues that are you know, crowded streets going to be more of a problem? What are the environmental issues?
Right. Yeah. So definitely the environment is what we're focused on. But I guess with the Mother Earth Project, you know, originally we were about just the climate emergency and the environment, but the whole project is now sort of extended to, you know, racial justice and equity issues and environmental racism, you know, and opportunities for underserved communities. So I sort of feel like maybe our focus is not just only like stormwater, but maybe that's another question in itself. You know, I know that we drafted a document with Matt that sort of outlined what our goals are as an environment committee, but I wonder whether it is just about only environment, but anything that's related to the environment. Like
Well, I'll let you work that out with the committee, and
Okay.
That's your call, obviously.
Okay.
But one of the ways that the planners themselves talk about is they see this as a very pro-environment plan, because the alternative has been the growth of exurbs, you know, just continuing to extend outwards into the rural areas of the county. And that has cost us, you know, new roads being developed, more miles being driven by cars, which of course is, you know, contributes to global warming, and they say that the vision here is getting away from that by increasing more density where offices are, where restaurants are. They are substantially contributing to a sustainable society.
Great.
And I just add to that, you know, from having heard the county talk about its climate plans, you know, the council members have indicated Thrive is in support, and it's part of the plan in the sense that, just as Robin just mentioned, you know, more density and less car travel, et cetera. So just wanted to give that a piece of information.
Great. Well, I'd like to bring our meeting to a close on this very important subject. It's something that we can all think about on our own. And we can re-adjourn, you know, either in a month or two, depending on other agenda items. I'll let you know. We generally thought to do every other month, but if we have what I call a backlog of agenda items, that's why I called this month's meeting. So with that, I'd like to say good night to everybody. Sorry I couldn't be here visually. I gotta restart my computer and see whether that problem fixes itself. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Yogesh, who's actually built a duplex in his house. He has the first duplex in Somerset. I'm not sure it's legal, but he has his house and then he has an igloo next to his house. I saw it today. Did anyone see the igloo? Yogesh, can you just tell us briefly what happened there? And do you have a permit?
Like most things with the construction of my house, I don't have a permit, but the igloo is for my kids. They really wanted to build a real igloo. So we got a bunch of, you know, we got a little container and made bricks and made an igloo. We didn't frame the door properly, so the front fell off, but you know, live and learn.
That's not a duplex. That's an accessory dwelling unit, for heaven's sake.
Okay. Details. Everyone has to go over and check out the igloo. It's really beautiful. So, all right, everybody. Well, thanks and have a nice evening. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night, Barton. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.